Well, hello there and welcome to my channel. This is Transforming Tina, and the latest thing I was involved in was training for the Boston Marathon. Now, let me correct that. It wasn't the in-person Boston Marathon. For 2021, they had a virtual option. So when was I ever going to get another chance to actually say that I ran the Boston Marathon other than this? So stick with me and I'll share with you the different things that I used over the summer and how I organized my materials to be prepared to run a virtual marathon alone. So here we go. I started training for the Boston Marathon in June of 2021. I had a calendar of mileage that I had to achieve each week to get me to where I actually ran the marathon in October 2021. It was a long, arduous summer. And one of the things that I struggled with the most was keeping all of my things together, because I would go out on a run and I would realize, well, I need this or I need that. So to start off with, it was a summer training session. So I knew I needed to keep things light and the ability to feel comfortable. So I was very comfortable in wearing an exercise bra, and I wore this the entire training season. This was what I wore every time I did my long runs. Now, my short runs during the week, I would wear various things, but the long runs where you have to make sure you have the right things in order to make things comfortable, I always wore this. I wore short cropped leggings. And the nice thing about what they're doing now is they're putting these pockets in here, and I used these pockets, and I'll explain in a little bit what I used, but I wore these every time I did my long run. So I had this. This may be TMI, but I made sure I wore the same underwear every time as well. Yes, and I wore black because by the end of the run, they would just stretch so much. So if they showed a little bit, it wasn't that weird. Although it may be weird to share with you my. The next thing that was clothing that I wore every single time I did the run were these compression socks. And I learned early on that I need to wear compression socks. And I found that, well, first off, I developed plantar fasciitis, which is so painful, and it has caused me not to be able to run. I don't know if these kept me from getting plantar fasciitis. I think it was also the stretching I did during the week. I also got foot massages throughout the summer, but I wore these every time I did my long runs. My running skirts brand, and they have a left and a right, and I was sure to wear them. I went through 2 pair of Brooks sneakers over the course of my running time, and the ones that I wore were the Brooks Glycerins, and I typically wear a size 7.5, 8 in normal shoes, but when it comes to my running shoes, I wear a size 10. It's just much more comfortable for me. My toes don't hit against the top. And I will tell you, I did not have one blister all summer long. The other thing that I wear is I have this, I don't know, it's one of these running belts, and the brand on this one is a Nathan. And I would wear this around my jogging leggings. And in this, I would keep my little baggie of M&Ms that I used as my fuel source. And I also used Beachbody beach bars as my fuel source. So that fit in there. The thing that really helped to keep myself organized, I have this water pack. It's a Nathan. I've worn this for multiple marathons, but when I first started running, I forgot just this summer, I forgot that I needed water as I was running. So there would be times that by the time I got back to the house after, like, let's say a 5-mile run, I would be so parched. So I pulled out my old Nathan, and this is what I had. And when I started my season out, I only had my original bladder, and it was 1.5 liter. And it stained, unfortunately, because of the supplements that I was putting in there. Let me share with you what I put in as supplements. So for my hydration system, I use the Beachbody Performance Hydrate. The thing that I used throughout my whole training process was Beachbody's Energize. I would do 1 scoop before I started in the morning, and then I would put a scoop in my water in the bladder, And then I would I could also have these single serve packets. And about when I was getting into the double digit miles for training, I would do another scoop. And it really did help give me the energy as I went on. Knowing I was going to be doing a full marathon and I really didn't have the supports of an actual race where there would be water cups and Gatorade available, I purchased a second Nathan bladder. And so this one is beautifully still clean, still unstained, because I never put the hydrate in there or the Energize. This is a 2-liter container. And for this one, I bought Noon hydrate tablets, and it didn't stain the container. And it was actually a nice little change. So for the longer runs, like my 18, 20, and then ultimately the 26.2, I put those in here so that I had a little bit of a different flavor. And I'll explain how I use that in the race, because I couldn't put both bladders in my Nathan at the same time. The other thing that I ran with every time was this little cloth. This was actually a Norwex cloth that I guess I was given as a free sample, and it fit perfectly in the little pocket in my leggings. And so I kept that for my nose, because during the summer there was a flower that bloomed and I would become my nose would start running and become allergic. But then as time went on, just to wipe off the sweat on my face really helped. The other thing that I started to wear near the end, I was wearing a hairband, and then I got this really cool one for my son's soccer team. And I bought it for him. Kind of looked like a ninja. But he hated it and I didn't mind it. So I wore this. 2 things that I would recommend perhaps is training with sunglasses for when it's sunny out. I have light eyes. I should have worn sunglasses. And the other thing is I was not consistent about wearing my sunscreen. But here's why I wasn't consistent. Every time I ran, I would wash everything right afterwards because I had to. And then all of these things fit into this packet. So I would put the Nathan belt, I would put the sock, my black underwear, my leg, and my exercise bra all in the same bag, along with my Norwex cloth and my hairband. And then I started to realize as time went on, I needed a few other things that did still fit in here. One thing that I needed to add to my repertoire as time went on, this pack, which is why you have to do all your practicing, started to rub a mole I had on my back. So I purchased these waterproof bandages. Note to self, put them on the night before and not the morning you're getting up to run, because for me, I got up very early in the morning. When I say very early, I would get up at 4 to start running by 5. And in the morning, I just didn't have the coordination to put these on. They do take a little bit of coordination to do, so I would put them on at night, and I did that for the race too. The other thing that I learned to put on was I had purchased this a while ago. It's this Body Glide anti-chafing, and even though my leggings were long enough that I didn't have chafing between my legs, I had chafing under my arms. And also I noticed one other marathon that I was all cut up on the back, and it must have been how my vest was rubbing me. So what I learned was if I put this on my back and on my arms, it didn't cause any problem. Now, one time I forgot to put this in my backpack and I had to punt, right? I had to figure out what else to do. So what I learned is this Aquaphor worked just as good, if not better. And it was a small enough thing that I could actually keep it in my pocket in case my arm started to chafe while I was running, because so much sweat for so long, you could start chafing. So this was a lifesaver. These are the things that I used every time I trained. The other thing, and I always had my AirPods, but I didn't keep those in the pack. And I always had my phone. That's what I put in the other pocket. And I use Map My Fitness to keep track of my miles. And I'll share with you the different training things that I did. And it tells what my rate was, my pacing. And then near the end, I decided, because what would happen is I would do a long run and then something would go wrong with my phone. And then I do interval running. I do the Galloway method of interval running. And I played around with different intervals. By the end of my training session, and what I ran most of the marathon was run 2 minutes, 30 seconds, walk 1 minute. And so I didn't want to rely on my phone to keep the dinging going. So I purchased this Gym Boss, and it would keep track of, I'll explain that in a second, and then 1 minute walk. So it would beep and tell me what interval I was in. And so this was a real help. It wasn't that expensive. I got it on Amazon. I was able to do my running series, do my long runs on the weekend, and then ultimately do my marathon with these supplies. This is what I used every week for my long run. And you don't want to spend the night before you're getting ready to do one of your long runs looking for all your stuff. So that's why keeping everything in this, it's amazing how much you can actually put in here. And if you wash everything right after you use it, and when it comes out of the wash, you take everything that's there and you just stick it back in, and then all of your other supplies go right in there. When it's time to go the next morning, or wake up in the morning and do your run, you have all your materials right there. You don't have to worry about anything. You just have to find your phone and your my AirPods. And most of the time I had them. One time I did forget my AirPods, and it really wasn't a big deal. For people that think a virtual marathon is easier than necessarily doing the actual go to a race, here's some things I want to prepare you for that I knew in my heart because I trained by myself all summer long, but I didn't realize it. When I was seeing all these pictures from the Boston Marathon, and I saw people at the starting line and at the finish line, and I've run other races, and people would be cheering, and there would be bands and music and all these things, people holding signs, the race photographer. There was none of that. None. So I had trained all summer and woke up very early in the morning. So I didn't like running during the daylight hours because it was so hot and humid. And even in October in New Jersey, it was still humid. So I knew I needed to get up early. So I started the race at 5:30 a.m. So for those of you that aren't in Eastern Standard Time, it is pitch black dark at 5:30 a.m. So I ran from 5:30 a.m. until sunrise was at 6:55. So I had mapped it so I could run close to my home for the first 7 miles. That was my goal because I didn't want to go off. But I had to run all these roads, and I had trained over it. So I knew in general what I wanted to do. And I knew if I could get 7 miles in, I would be okay going off that. So I did that. So the way I managed the 2 water bladders and doing it by myself was I filled the 2-liter water bladder first. And that's what I ran with for the first from 5:30 to 7 o'clock. And I made a point of making sure I drank the water. My water stop was after the 7 miles, I was able to return home, swap out the bladders. I then had the 1.5 with all the hydrate and the energize in there, along with, I had sitting there a muffin. I ate that, and a banana. I ate half a banana, and then I used the restroom, and then I went off and did the rest of the 19 point whatever was left for that. And I had it all mapped out. I had tried it out on my bicycle the night before, the 26.2 miles, and I timed it to the T. Now, let me just say, I did not listen to any music or any kind of podcast or book for the first 13 miles. And my pace was slower than I had wanted it to be, but it was so dark, I needed to go slower. So I was a little disheartened by my pace. I wanted to be closer to a 5.5-hour marathon. I ended up doing a 5-hour, 55-minute marathon. And there were many times, because there was nobody there. There were many times I thought, who would really know if I quit? Who would even care if I quit? And so I really had to have the fortitude of my mindset to say, no, you're not going to quit. No, you're not going to cheat. You're going to keep going. You're going to keep the course. You've trained all summer. And if you were to quit or to cheat, you're only quitting on yourself, and you're only cheating on yourself. So near the end, I would say the last 2.5 miles, my hips just didn't even want to work. Like, I don't even think I was, like, if anybody else would see me, like in my mind, I thought I was running. I don't think I was. And I couldn't. That's why this thing got screwed up, because it was at 2:30 and I was trying to reset it so I could change the pacing. And then I thought to myself, why don't you just walk 2.5 minutes and then run 1 minute? So that's what I did, because I couldn't change it, but I did change it a little bit. I added 3 seconds. So I walked 2.5 minutes and then ran 1 minute. And so I'm coming down to the end and I see my time, I see what it is, and I reach my finish line and there's nobody there. But I did it. And who cares if there was nobody there? Look at it as, isn't that what life is? Like, we think everybody's watching us. We think everybody's there and judging us and seeing what they're doing. And yeah, they are judging us and they're seeing the things that we do. How much does it really impact you? I mean, yes, the crowd cheering does give you the energy, but you need a sense of self and you need to have that fortitude that you're going to do it. Whatever it is you want to do, run a marathon, write a book, finish your term paper, eat your meal plan, whatever it is you're going to do, you have to do it because you say you're going to do it. You want to have systems in place like this, having all these things ready at the ready and coming up with strategies, how to make sure you use them, always there for you to support you. So when I would wake up in the morning on my running day, this would be here. And it would say to me, Tina, you made a commitment to do this run, so get out there and do it. I hope that this helps somebody who's planning to do a long run, or maybe you want to do a virtual marathon, or maybe you're considering a virtual marathon. Just keep in mind, you can get people to come and greet and meet and do all this stuff. Who wants to hang out and wait for 6 hours for me to show up? I mean, my husband was doing other things to take care of the family so we could get other things taken care of so I could do this personal goal of running this Boston Marathon. So thanks for hanging out with me.